she's actually one of my personal heroes, one of my best friends. She is a clinical trial nurse and that I've met about 10 years ago, and she has a true passion for helping us, and we need so many more people just like her in the world. The world would be a better place. So Daphne.
Thank you, dear. Thank you so much, Jill. Before I get started, I just want to tell you how much work Jill has put into getting this program together. When we first got wind of being able to collaborate with the Pituitary Society and then the Endocrine Nurses Society and the patients as a nice trifecta of people that have basically the pituitary. I'm not sure if you're aware, but Pituitary Society is probably all the renowned thought leaders in pituitary conditions, and we really worked hard to get this collaboration going, and we have a lot of people to thank. Actually, our pharma advocates too as well. The Chiasma group, and thank you. We honestly would not be here with a lot of our pharmaceutical support. Jill has she has made an Herculean effort to get a lot of funding to bring a bunch of you here with support, and she's done an amazing job. She's working 24/7, for the most part by herself. We have had some helpers, which has been wonderful this year, because otherwise it was like her and I, and we were just going crazy, and I'm like, I don't want to have a meeting every other year anymore. We can't handle it. We got to do it every 3 years or so. But anyways, we are so happy to bring all of you here, and thank you so much, because at the end of the day, the bottom line is, and Chris and I know it, it's really about the patients, because you are the ones that are getting these medications or these treatments, and you are the ones that best know how you feel, and we do value that, and we apologize if we don't always listen to that, because we too are human, and we have our own issues. We also still have personal lives, guys. So I mean, we're trying to do everything we can, and we will go above and beyond to help you, but just be patient with us, okay? And with that, I just want to thank Jill for bringing us all together. So one of the things about this talk is, in order to get the drugs that you need, so when we were at the panel, there are only 3 classes of drugs out there right now. So we want to bring options to you guys. So that's why I'm going to talk about clinical trials, and I know a lot of people might not want to do them, but I'm hoping every single one of you will be part of a clinical trial. Oh. Oh, that's right. There we go. So just in case you don't know me, I've been at Northwestern with Dr. Molich for over 17 years. He's one of the thought leaders in acromegaly, as well as growth hormone, Cushing's, and so I've been with him for 17 years. He's an awesome boss. I would not be where I am in this arena without him. We've done probably over 50+ trials since I've been with him, all different phases of studies, and it's just been wonderful to be able to connect patients with the drugs they need and give them access to a lot of the medications that are available. Just a little bit about me. Sorry, it's weird pointing to the pointer at the back. Okay, so just a little bit. So I'm at Northwestern in Chicago. Happy to be here because it's nice and warm here. And we have anywhere from basically 50 to 70 acromegaly patients at our center. We're considered a pituitary center, but unfortunately we don't have a dedicated pituitary surgeon anymore, because he retired about 5 years ago. He was one of the best, Dr. Ivan Shurik. So believe it or not, we actually send out a lot to Dr. Brooks Swearingen, who for the first time I've actually met yesterday. So I had the privilege of finally meeting him, because we refer to him all the time. And unfortunately with insurance, we can't always send everybody to Brooks Swearingen in Boston. So we're trying to keep it more local, and it's also insurance based. So Unfortunately, it depends on someone's insurance where they can get their pituitary surgery as well. But unfortunately, that's how it is in the US. And my role is basically to help patients from initial diagnosis through getting their medications and getting treated. But a lot of times at Northwestern, we get a lot of second opinions as well. So we get a lot of patients that have already seen people, and then we're gonna help them get access to drugs or help them get better. As far as the patient breakdown, so currently with the drugs available, you can see that the percentages are, we have about 40% are on remission after surgery. Then, actually this probably has changed, I didn't change the slide. I would say it's about 50-50 with LAR and Smatchley now. And pegviscement, it's just because our center doesn't use it as much. Dr. Mullich just never used it as much as some of the other physicians. And then I keep a certain population, about 15, but probably more like 20% for clinical trials. And as we go through it, I'll tell you why. So basically, what is a clinical trial? It's research conducted in human volunteers, so that would be you guys. We also have a lab too that has, oh, hi Carlos, that has, that we study, the molecules too as well on the mice and stuff, but clinical trials is all human studies. And there are 4 different phases of clinical trials. So phase 1 is basically testing a drug, and basically this is on healthy volunteers, so it's not patients that have the condition yet, and they're looking for the dose ranging. So the first thing, like the FDA director had mentioned, is for safety, and that's what the first phases do usually, and it's a small population. So then next comes phase 2, which is the testing of the drug on patients, and what we're really looking at is safety and efficacy. So again, this is a small population, usually about, with the rare disease base, anywhere from 30 to 50 patients. And this determines if the drug is efficacious and if they want to move forward to the next phase. So they basically want to see if the drug actually works. So phase 3 is probably when I'll bring most of you in, although we do have a couple on phase 2 as well. But this is where testing of drug on patients to not only assess efficacy and safety, but it's going to be a larger population of people so that they have the data to support that the drug actually does work and is efficacious and safe. And then after that point, then they can move on to approval of the drug. So after phase 3, a drug is usually FDA approved. And then we go into phase 4, where it's more post-marketing surveillance. And that's where we're just watching the drug use in public and trying to see what the long-term effects of the drugs are. And these are actually important, but I have to admit, in clinical practice, we don't always like these type of studies, just because when you get an SAE, then you have to do all this paperwork, and it's cumbersome. But I know that it's very important, so, and as the FDA director had mentioned, a lot of this data can actually be used to support a drug if they don't have a type of randomized clinical trial. So I think that's going to be one of the things that we're going to start working on more. So those are the phases. And there's 2 different opportunities again. So the types of research opportunities are actually interventional, and those are most of the studies that we do at Northwestern and a lot of the other academic centers. And these are very specific. They have like 100, 200-page protocols where you are required to come in for visits and do tests and procedures. And basically, they're experimental still, because they're trying to find out if the treatment is safe and effective. And then there's, again, the observational surveillance, where we're watching the large groups of patients, trying to get information on safety of the drug, and are there any other unexpected risks that have occurred on the approved medication. So what are the benefits of participating in these clinical trials? And I have to tell you, there are a lot, so come do them with me in Northwestern. I have a few patients here now. So one of them is patients take an active role in their own health care. So you're in charge. You have access to new research treatment options, cutting-edge medications. And you're contributing to medical research, perhaps some advances in medicine. I always tell my patients when they come in, if they're interested, after reading the 30-page consent, I'll be like, okay, so You know how you go to Walgreens, CVS, or one of the pharmacies and you see all those side effects? Or on the commercials, it's like such and such will happen and blah, 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 and they like do it really quickly. That is what you are helping create. You're gonna be the one that, oh, flu symptoms, or GI issues. So you're contributing to research. You can tell people, hey, I, helped put that on there. And it's also a good option for patients with limited or no insurance. In fact, I would say about that 20% of the population that I save for clinical trials, I don't know if it's gonna skew my population, but those are patients that don't have really good insurance. And I have to be honest with you, this year, the Affordable Care Insurance, and I don't wanna be negative, but it's been awful. Like, I have never seen deductibles so high. Like in Illinois, the lowest deductible is now $7,500, and that's in network. And then when I asked what the out-of-pocket was, for the out-of-network was almost $28,000. I'm like, who can afford that? And then they're still paying these high premiums. You can tell I don't like the insurance companies very much. And then another benefit is excellent access to good healthcare teams with no waiting periods. We get you in right away. You don't have long waits. And then a caveat to that is also with our clinic, we sometimes it's really hard to get into Dr. Mullich, like sometimes months. So if you're in a clinical trial, I get you in right away. And then also you might have visits with him. So in lieu of visits, the actual visit for the study counts as a visit. So you're not paying for that with your insurance. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but it's a clinical trial. That's an added benefit because some of the copays are now $100 for even a visit, office visit. And then lastly, again, it's you're contributing to the advancements of research for your condition. So like societal well-being, who doesn't want to be a part of that? So how do we decide which patients we're going to use for these clinical trials? So suitability to the protocol criteria, and obviously rare disease diagnosis, so all of you would qualify. Your current treatment is not working, it's not effective. The type of insurance you have, or no insurance. Accessibility to the drugs for your condition, also tied again with insurance a little bit. Availability and time to come in for visits. This is really important because one of the things I assess is if I'm going to screen you, I have 100%, like whoever I screen will be randomized for the most part, unless they don't meet some of the lab values. So it's very important that you're going to commit to the time. And a lot of the studies we do, we compensate you a little, but it's not like you're going to get rich from being in a clinical trial, at least not for the studies we do. But you're going to get access to drugs that work. And like I mentioned earlier, these drugs, which I will show you the costs later, are very expensive. And then again, compliance to the visit schedule. So it's really important. Some of these studies do require a lot of visits and a lot of procedures. So once you sign on a consent, you're committed. You could always back out. My IRB would kill me if I said you're committed and you have to stay in. But we would really like you to be committed. Otherwise, don't commit to it. Don't do it. Research for the cause. Okay. So why would you want to do a study? Basically, with rare diseases, there may be fewer approved medication options. Like what's working for you, what you have now may not be working. So this would be a good option for you. And then I can't stress enough, but clinical trials really lead to drug approvals and advances in medicine. So I don't think anyone had mentioned it in the any of the talks, but I really believe research drives clinical practice. It really does. And maybe they coexist, but I really think that the research gets the new drugs out there. And then also there's possible safer and more efficacious medications out there from these clinical trials. And then the bottom line is it gives you choices, options. Since there's only 3 classes right now, it's nice to have another option. And I know that there's a lot more studies coming out there that will give you options, and I'm going to list a bunch of them at the end. And then also, knowledge from clinical trials may improve clinical care. So these studies provide and support evidence on clinical decision making. And then in all honesty, published data helps patient care management. A lot of the docs are very big on is there any data on it that it works? So they like to see that. I know maybe not a lot of the local endos and stuff, but it starts at the academic centers and trickles down. And a lot of our local docs actually, so they're very afraid to just prescribe some of the medications because they're not as familiar, because obviously with some of the rare diseases, they don't see patients as much. So they'll refer back to us and tell us, hey, what do you do? What does Mark Molich do? And they follow that, So the data is very important too. And then results may actually bring out any deficiencies in patient care. So that's where there's a nice little circle where, clinical trials support, patient care. So what's the difference between clinical trial participation versus what's out there for approved medication in case for like the newly diagnosed patients? So again, patients, you're able to take an active role in your own health care. You have access to new research treatments. A lot of this is repetitive, but I want to get this in your brain about clinical trials. It's an option for those of you that are not able to tolerate certain drugs. You have other options. You're contributing into medical research. Again, good option for those who have limited or no insurance. And then you get the gold standard care with the medical team. And then again, you could see you're the healthcare provider through the study. You have access to care. But the good thing about the approved medications, there's known safety and efficacy. And we have experience with the administration of those drugs. So what are the practicalities and reimbursement issues with initiation of medical treatment with injectables? And as you can, I don't know if you can see all these cartoons, but they're all about prior auths. And I know you all know that I'm a big advocate of these prior auths are just ridiculous. Especially this past year has been a nightmare. So some medical therapy considerations. So there's a limited number of FDA-approved medications out there right now, and insurance coverage varies widely. Also, another way that we choose certain medications for patients is because physician preference. Also, the patients at our clinic are involved with preference as well, and also if the tolerability is a factor too as well, on how we provide patients with the medications. And then also, particularly on your practice, some practices might not have familiarity with the prescription process and the prior auth process, so it's hard to get some of those drugs through. And the PA process is, we have one person now that we're trying to get to do some of the PAs, because it really takes one person to be able to do all these. And I'm trying to get out of that. And then also expertise in administration of the medication. So currently, this is from 2017. I want to show you the costs of some of these drugs, and I know some of you know how expensive these are. So for acromegaly, the FDA approved our Sandostatin LAR, a whopping up to $7,500 a month. These are the self-pay rates. This is not insurance rates. Then there's Somatuline Depot, almost $8,150. And in fact, for that one that I was doing, the six-week one that took me forever and then it was denied, I found out it was $9,825 for the 120 milligram. Yeah, $10,000 a month. No wonder that it was an exclusion on the policy. Pasriatide, yeah, $14,000. Somavert, give or take, almost $8,000. And then Sandostatin sub-Q, as Jill alluded to, that's why this one's trying to be prescribed more, $1,100 a month. Considerably cheap comparative to the other ones. And these were provided by my friend at Ocean Breeze Pharmacy. So the insurance verification process, prior auths, my favorite topic. So, oh, sure.
How effective is that last one, since it's so much cheaper compared to the other for those of us that are on the
So
I'm
actually,
on
we just had a,
Somatuline and Somabert.
so Bert just asked how effective is the sub-Q sandostatin. Actually, it is pretty effective. It's almost similar to the continual, like the Mycapssa continual dosing. So it's with the other injectables, sometimes you do end up having breakthrough symptoms, but if with the constant three times a day injection, it's a little bit more consistent dosing.
But you have to be very religious.
Yeah.
8 hours. You can't miss doses on that.
Yeah, because the half-life is 8 hours.
Typically, because it's a medication that has to be stored between 36 and 46 degrees, there are, issues. What if you're out and 8 hours later, you don't have the medicine in a bag? Those sorts of things. That's why they've gone to the long-acting injections. But Dr. Molich, we were also discussing this. They found that you can modify an insulin pump and put it in an insulin pump and then change it out about every 5 days.
What's it? What?
I've never heard that.
Well, no, because an insulin pump, insulin's supposed to be refrigerated as well, so there is something in the pump that regulates the temperature of the medication.
Yeah.
It's not an FDA-approved treatment.
Right. It's
It's off-label.
right, and we've had like 4 patients on that. He's somehow been able to get it approved, but it's actually helped with also headaches. The headaches are always the hardest to get rid of, and somehow it has actually helped with the headaches. So I think he's helping to write a paper on it.
And the other thing, it's not necessarily effective for every person because of the different types of receptors that it actually affects. And so, usually in most of the treatments that we have, we look at an efficacy of anywhere between 40 to 50%. So you've got a 50-50 chance.
Right.
Sorry. Thank you. So you got about a 50-50 chance of that drug being effective for you. So number one, you've got the compliance issue that you talked about. You've got to be able to adhere to that schedule to keep your IGF-1 under control. Then you've got to be able to tolerate that because it does have a few more side effects. And then it has to be right for you in terms of that receptor pattern. So there's more to think about when you're choosing that type of a medication. But yeah, it could be very effective for some people.
Right. That's where individualized therapy is important. Everyone has different choices and options and things that will work for you. So the nurse's role again. So we start the prior auths, which is a statement of medical necessity. And we're tracking the status of it. This is more our role, so I'm going to go through this quickly. Troubleshoot problems. It's just basically, I'm just showing you that I have to do a lot of work. Very time-consuming and labor-intensive. Right, Chris? So we coordinate between the specialty pharmacy, the pharmaceutical. I mean, honestly, you're literally on the phone for like hours. And half the time, they don't even give you the right number. So it's not a fun process.
They play the same games with them as what they play with.
Yeah, it's horrible. Imagine Dr. Mulch on the phone for 2 hours. He has it on the background while he's charting, though, so he's multitasking. So would you participate in a clinical trial? So I just want to show you what new drugs are out on the market, and there's a lot of trials that we're ready to recruit, okay? So we have, chiasma. Sorry. Come on. It's at a phase 3, oral octreotide. Then there's a Swedish company that Novartis is working for, also phase 3. It's a fluid crystallized octreotide, injectable. Then there's Crinetics. They have actually 2 studies, an oral SS2 agonist, oral pill. Then Ionis has a growth hormone receptor inhibitor, antisense, and that's a phase 2. It's an injection every 4 weeks. Strongbridge Cortendo has their Core 005. It's another somatostatin analog, extended release, hitting different receptors. That's a phase 2 right now, actively going on. There's a lot. Let's see. Antisense 1103. This is another injectable, phase 2. Mitotech Pharma. This is another injectable, Q-octreotide, but this is phase 1. but the company's probably going to be going straight to phase 3, so this is coming out soon too as well. Ono Pharmaceuticals, another oral somatostatin analog, but early phase 1. So you guys would probably be more phase 2 and 3. Peptron Group, this is another phase 1, a somatostatin analog, a small sub-Q needle. I know, there's a lot. Amit Pharma, another somatostatin analog. I can't believe how many somatostatin analogs there's being developed. Glide, oh, this is an interesting one. This is almost like the Teva for growth hormone, the injector. It's like through the skin. It's like a mechanical thing that shoots in the medication through the skin. Yeah, sort of like that, yeah. I don't know if it's painful. And then Dauntless has their inhaled formulation. Or no, that's the weekly. I'm sorry, that's the biweekly sub-Q injection. There's so many of them, I can't keep track. And then yeah, this is the nasal mist, the DP1038. But they're in preclinical right now. They haven't moved forward yet. So in summary, because I know it's almost time, increasing medical therapy options. So basically, being part in the clinical trials gives you more choices. You have better options, maybe something that will better control your symptoms and condition. And then hopefully these will all lead to improved quality of life. And one of the caveats is that it's the whole process for the current medications are just getting very time intensive for the practice. You often have high copays, and more recently now, especially for somatostatin, they're now requiring injections in the office. I had a bunch of patients where we had to, basically try to switch them or go to an infusion center because they can't self-inject anymore, even though that was the original way that patients were doing it. And now, as Jill alluded to, the single pharmacy provider barrier to medication access as well. So there's endocrinology oh, go ahead.
If there are people that don't live in major metropolitan areas, are there trials that will pay for travel?
Absolutely. All these studies will help pay for travel. But there might be centers closer to you. But if you want to come to Chicago, come on down. So thank you. Any questions, anyone? It's yours. That's Chris's skull. Thanks. Anyone? Oh, sorry.
I had a question. How
Sure.
long do the clinical trials run? And do you have to go to the local hospital or center?
So they run anywhere from, some studies are only 6 months, where there's others that have been going on for like 1, 2, 3 years. It varies depending on what level they're at and where they're at in the phase process. And a lot of them are more at institutions, but there's a lot of institutions, and if you go on clinicaltrials.gov, you can find a site near you. And like we said, they will pay for travel, because one of the things is your condition is a rare disease, so there's not as many patients out there, so we need the patients to come in and, basically do the studies. Okay. Anyone else? Oh, sorry. Thanks.
Being in a clinical trial and being with a rare disease, do you have a chance of being one of the patients that get the placebo and not get the real drug?
So a lot of the randomized control trials with placebo, it's only like 4 to 6 weeks usually, right? Maybe 8 weeks was the longest I've seen. But if you will always be on, there's a chance for rescue drug. So you're not going to be on placebo if like your levels are going down. They would put you on rescue drugs, so you'd be fine. But unfortunately, that's what the FDA wants right now. And it would be a short period of time though. And then you'd be on the real drug again. Okay. Carlos?
I just wanted just to let you know that I'm so glad that you're my nurse.
Thanks, Carlos. Thank you.
To tell you the truth, I feel like you're my guardian angel because you have guided me into the AA group, Acromegaly Anonymous, or AA. Well, I guess the group. I don't want to mess up right now. I better not mess up right now, oh boy. You better not want to look at me because I'm getting kind of
You're going to make me cry.
I know, right?
Stop. I have makeup
Well-
on today. Okay, thank you. Thanks, sweetie.
And Jill, also, I love you so much for making this group. If everybody can applause right here, right now.
Thanks.
And thank you everybody that has helped me. Today, getting here was really harsh for me because I had like a lot of pain problems. And just thank you so much. There's nothing else I can say.
This is
It's
Acromegaly
just
community. We're your
thank you so
family.
much.
Okay, I think we have to move on to the next talk. Sorry.
My house is your house.
You need help, honey?
I can't remember how to do that.
Where they swap them out. So for every conference, we have, since Tanya Angus passed, we have the Prince Award. And I received